Hello and welcome to The Creative Experience. My name is Derek Hunt and I'm a professional glass artist, and I interview fellow artists to showcase their work to bring you the very best in what's happening now with glass across the globe. I interview artists from a wide variety of backgrounds. Some of them are at the beginning of their careers. They've just been working with glass for maybe 5 or 6 years. Others have got an international reputation and an award-winning portfolio of glass in a variety of formats. All of them have one thing in common. They're producing beautiful, innovative and exciting new glass, and I'm here to elevate that and showcase it to you as a way of inspiring the next generation and developing a community of fellow creatives. If you find value in this, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because I create videos on a very regular basis. And so today it is my great pleasure to introduce and bring to your attention the American international glass artist Guy Kemper. His work has been published, exhibited and collected in the United States, Europe, Japan and the Middle East, and he's been subject to 3 documentary films. I first met Guy while working at the Derek Studios in Germany, and we've stayed friends and colleagues ever since. I really admire his work. He's a great communicator, a really interesting artist, very unique, very recognizable style. I think you're going to enjoy today's interview. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Hey Guy, how are you doing?
Hey Derek.
So you've got, from what I saw, you've got this fantastic sort of set of woodland and rivers, and are you kind of like managing all of that as well, or is that just going wild?
Both, yes and yes. I have 95 acres of, it's probably 70 acres of forest and 25 acres of pasture. Most of it is forest with like a gorge sort of topography, very deep trench with creeks at the bottom and waterfalls.
Do you farm the land as well, or do you have people on the land who farm the land?
No way. It's hard enough already, just doing what I'm doing, and I have no fences, so there's no possibility of actually farming, and I have no soil either. It's all rocks. I mean, you go down 10 inches in the soil and it's rock. So there is no possibility to grow anything or have any animals. So I'm off the hook on those things. It's just for fun.
You know, the wonderful thing is, like, you've got your own kind of wonderful sort of isolation. If you just want to just get away from everything, you've got lots of space to do that, which is fantastic. So I take it you're comfortable with your own company, and you're comfortable with not being in a city environment most of the time, yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, I either want to be in the city, in the middle of the city, which is where I moved from. I had a house right in the very heart of downtown Lexington, Kentucky. And I mean, I could walk to 50 bars and restaurants from where I lived. And I either want to be there or I want to be where I'm at, which is at the end of a dead end road, 30 minutes from town. But when you get here, you feel like you're at the end of the world.
I took my family up to the Highlands of Scotland about 2 weeks ago, where I used to come from, up in the Highlands. And it's a little bit like that. It's wilderness. It's just all landscape. And you can stand on top of a hill and you can look 360 degrees and not see another town or another conurbation or anything. And there's something fantastic about just getting away to you and nature. It's good for the soul, isn't it?
Oh my God, it's essential.
For everybody's benefit and mine as well, I have been aware of your work for a number of years. We first met in Germany in the 2010, 2011, something like that. And you were working on a variety of large-scale projects, and you had been working with the Derek Studio for a number of years. And most of your work, from what I can see, is really large-scale public art. You don't tend to do things on a small scale most of the time. How did you get started in glass? I mean, obviously you didn't start big. You must have started somewhere along the line. What's the story of you getting involved in glass to start with?
It is a very circuitous route. I have a degree in agronomy, which is soil and plant science. I was going to be a farmer. And I was working as an agronomist for an engineering company at the time, and I had a friend this was in the 80s, in the early 80s, and at that time in the United States, stained glass was really hot. And so I had a friend that was buying and selling a lot of stained glass windows, and he asked me to start working on his windows because I did it as a hobby before. And so I ended up doing that, and I decided, I'm going to try this. I mean, I have nothing to lose. So it's not like in Europe. In the United States, you don't need any kind of paper or schooling or anything like that. Anybody can hang a sign out and say, Guy Kemper stained glass, and start working. So that's what I did. I rented a little shop in downtown, right in the middle of downtown Lexington, for $125 a month, and I hung a sign out, and I have literally been busy ever since. And then in the late 90s, I entered this competition for Orlando Airport, and I won it. And so I was in Germany to get the glass blown at Lambert's, because I've always principally only used Lambert's glass. So I went to Lambert's, and while I was in Germany, I stopped at Derrick's, and I really just wanted to see the Schreiders. And Wilhelm Derrick's took me around, and I saw the work of Graham Jones, which maybe this is what Andrew Moore was talking about in your interview with him recently, because I told Andrew Moore I went into Graham Jones's church in Wiesbaden and completely had a meltdown. I mean, I had no idea that you could do stuff like that. So it was, okay, this is great. And Wilhelm Derrick said, I'm going to do this job for you in Orlando Airport. And I said, no, it was 100 feet long, this job. So it was a big window. And I said, no, I'm going to do it, no problem. He says, no, I'm going to give you a price that you cannot refuse. And I said, okay, sure, do it. He did. So he made it. And then he said, look, after this, you just paint. Don't worry about if you can make it or how it's going to be made or anything else. Just paint anything you want, and you let me worry about everything else. And I thought, wow, that is a really great thought. So that's what I did. I got rid of all my employees. I just became a painter, and I let Derrick's pull their hair out and try to figure out how to do this stuff. And I still make windows myself occasionally. I've repaired a ton of old stained glass windows too. I mean, I did all this stuff. But it was a very good business model for me, because I was the only person in the United States for at least, 5 or 10 years that did that kind of work. Everything else was traditional. So I was ahead of the curve and enjoyed being the kind of, painterly person for several years. And now, of course, I have a lot of competition.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that is really quite a meteoric rise from just sort of starting to teach yourself working with glass and doing repairs to entering a major competition and winning it, and then just deciding to just go full time on that. That takes a lot of chutzpah to kind of decide that that's going to be because it's quite a precarious existence, isn't it, being a glass artist? Because basically, I'm presuming you're going in for competitions, and you're only as good as your last project most of the time. Is that not the case?
You're only as good as your proposal, because they don't. Yeah, it's nice that they feel like, oh, he's done this before. We don't have to worry about him taking off to Mexico and becoming a cokehead or something, So I have that trust. But yeah, I mean, I lose all the time. I'll usually always lose. failing is 90%. You fail 90% of the time, as you know. I mean, 90% of the time, they don't like your work. The money falls through. There's some other reason that, you piss them off. 90% of the time, you fail.
Because you tend to do these large scale projects, and so how do you source them? Is it open competitions? Is it by invitation? I mean, it's quite a thing to accept that you're going to not get most of the projects that you pitch for. I mean, that must have its. How do you deal with that? How do you kind of process that if you're kind of doing all this work and at the end of the day it doesn't pan out? Talk us through a little bit about that.
Oh God. It is a roller coaster. How I get my work, I have rarely ever won competitions, public art, municipal sponsored public art competitions. I find that those things are generally very ineptly run. Usually they pick the worst person. It used to be, years ago, before it became so fashionable, they had architects and they had technical people, engineers. They were very conscious of a long-term architectural integration, and they were much more technically minded. And there would be a couple of art people. Now it's all art people. They have no clue about the material, because they're like gallerists or teachers, and they still don't know anything about glass. They're doing this for fun, and so it's a lot more difficult, and they're threatened by all this. They're insecure, so they tend to want to have these scorecards, and it's like, imagine buying a bottle of judging wine with a scorecard. No, you judge wine on the palate, and art is the same way. You judge the art in the building where it's going. They have no concept of, all they're looking at is this. Oh, I like this. This is a wonderful design. They have no idea about that in the space that they have. That is completely separated and divorced from that. Winning public art competitions is nearly impossible. So mostly my jobs come from people that either already know me, or else they they decide on 2 or 3 people, and then I have a short competition. I have to only beat 2 or 3 people, not 200 or 300 people. And I never work for free anymore. No free designs.
Yeah, I'm very glad to hear that. I think so much of the art world is full of people who are just trying to kind of get a foot on the ladder, first rung on the ladder, and they give away their designs. They do so much for free. And then people start expecting that, how little people feel that they need to pay them for the work. It's really difficult work to do well. It involves spinning a whole lot of different plates in the air at once. And often you're asked to kind of put quite a detailed proposal together for next to nothing. And I have a problem with that as well. But I think, has it changed in recent years? I certainly notice a difference, because it used to be the case that a client would do the groundwork and do the research and look at different artists' work on their own time, in their own budget, and then approach one artist who they liked and said, I'm familiar with your work. We've got something we think you'd be interested in. Where nowadays it's a committee of people, as you say, with scorecards, judging it almost as if that it's like as you say, tasting wine, or something that has you can assign easy values to, and it's just the wrong way, I think, of commissioning art. You should really know the artist and know their work, and then it becomes a much more intimate and interesting thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult. For me anyway, it used to be better. Also, as glass artist, you have 2 strikes against you already for a glass project, because we're we're glass. We're not artists. We're glass artists. So we have no respect at all, which I admit is probably somewhat deserved. But if it's true, I mean, glass artists are not exactly, they're a odd group for sure. But yeah, if you're a painter, if you are a painter selling paintings in New York or Berlin or something, then, well, you'll get the job. You might not know anything about glass. You might not know anything about architecture or integrating art with architecture. You don't care, because artists, that's not their job. An artist, it's about me, the artist. It's what I want to say. It's my vision. And so when you start doing architectural art, these people have no concept that there's this duality of art and architecture and service to the architecture and all that. So you lose a lot of work now to real artists.
Well, certainly we're finding in the UK as well, we're getting celebrity artists come in like Hockney and the like, who, as you say, are painters, who are gallery artists, and they're celebrity artists, and they're coming in and they're doing the work, which is, I've got two views about that. One, obviously, being a professional glass artist, I want to protect my kind of revenue stream and be asked to do the work. But also the other thing is, I'm really interested to see what artists outside the medium do with it. I'm interested to see what a painter with a painter's vision does with glass, because I think that's when you get the breakthroughs. That's when you get things, people think in a slightly different way, rather than somebody who's trained in glass kind of coming up with the same solutions every time. So I hear what you're saying about using artists who are outside the medium, but it's got the potential to be really quite exciting as well, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the Richters, Luperts, some great work being done. Wonderful work being done by famous painters. So it's a lot of times it is really good.
Yeah. I mean, do you see the market changing? I mean, it was fantastic that you, as you say, you were ahead of the curve. You were producing work and getting it made in Europe long before anybody in the States woke up to that. So you had an early start. But are you seeing that market changing? And what do you see it changing into if we look ahead? I mean, how do you feel about sort of things as they develop? If they're going to bring in more celebrity artists, where do you see it going?
It's going to get a lot tougher for people to get started. Where the medium is going, I think, is we're kind of entering the 17th century again, where it's this, everybody loves glass and they want these images on glass. And if you're an artist, if you're a painter, all you really care about is your image on glass. How it's done usually is not so important. So the way it's going now, of course, it's all going into this technological revolution, digital printing on glass or on vinyl, float glass painting, and these new techniques that are super cheap and look great for the price. And a lot of people, they want to do this on a computer. So if you're an architect, you know how architects are, they think they're artists. So, architecture is the highest form of art, but no, most architects, just like most stained glass artists, are not artists. So they want to sit at their computer and design something and hit send, and it goes somewhere and it's printed on glass, and they're done. And it's so easy. And the thing is when you look at it on your computer, a photograph of that piece installed, it looks damn good. I mean, you have to go there, and then you go there and you're like, oh, well, yeah, it's clever, it's not bad, but And for $150 a square foot, it's great, but no, this is going to look like shit in 10 years.
What I wrestle with sometimes and I completely agree with you about where I think it's going. I think it's the cheapest way of producing, per yards and yards and yards of art at a cheap price. But I kind of feel that it'll eventually come full circle. I mean, it's cheap and cheerful just now, but the problem I have with it is, what's the difference between a lot of the printed art and a printed poster? You could print a poster on paper for a quarter of the price of doing it on glass. And I think when people move away from actually using colored glass, like Lambert's glass or any antique glass, you lose so much. You lose so much of that essential quality that glass brings.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, what's also happening, because it's the light, there are two problems going on in the field. One is the material, the cheapening of the material due to technology, similar to what happened in the 17th century. Yes, maybe eventually it will come back around, but Lamberts will be gone. All that stuff is gone, and the craft will be gone. So whether it ever comes back is a big question. And it might take, if it's gone for 100 years, that's a long time. But secondly, what you said about the poster art, that is so true. And that is what most public art is. It's poster art. It's, you're special, South Side of LA. You're, hey, this is your culture, Cleveland, and it's just like a poster telling people that they're special. And it's a one-note Johnny that has nothing to do with art. It's all about politically correct social edification and education.
Yeah.
And so it really becomes like signage.
Yeah.
So you got that with the easy way to do it technically. So, most of this stuff is pretty bad.
So, let's talk about things that are pretty good, things that are pretty fantastic. Your work is absolutely fabulous. It's won lots of awards. And I'm spoiled for choice looking at the work that you do. So I'm going to ask you to give me 3 of your favorite projects, say of the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, you can go further back if you like, but you've got so many exciting projects to choose from. What ones for you did you feel are particularly successful?
That's kind of like asking me who's my favorite child. There are sentimental favorites, and then there are maybe artistically artistic successes, because I don't win every time. I mean, I do some stuff, some crap sometimes, not on purpose, but you don't always get a hit when you're up to bat. So there are a couple of things that I don't like that I've done, but my sentimental favorites would be the first 3. Orlando Airport, which I mentioned earlier, which was a 100-foot long competition I won just out of sheer luck. It was an international competition. I mean, some people like in Germany applied for it. I mean, I think Carl Trout might have applied. I mean, that I could have beat Carl Trout was insane. But somehow they picked me, and I did this design that was sort of a memorial to my brother who had recently died. So that is a sentimental favorite, and then that's what introduced me to Derek's, and then the next job after that was my first painterly job. That was Bellarmine Chapel. And then that led more or less directly to Baltimore Washington Airport, which was a 120-foot long installation in an airport that was just a really beautiful piece. But then recent work I'm really excited about Nashville Airport. It's a big mosaic job. I'm wrapping columns in mosaic, which is still not installed. It's finished. Meyer did that. Probably Tampa, Florida Hospital Tampa, which is now Advent Health. But it was my first suspended piece, were these rings, these big glass rings that are just suspended with no hardware, really. That was great because it really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh my God, I never thought about that. Like, really important stuff that was freaking me out. So getting that installed was a big success, I think.
And I've noticed that you're doing quite a lot of mosaic work, as you say, with Myers Studios, and you're bringing figures in. The figure seems to be a relatively new feature to appear in your artwork. Is that something that you're going to be exploring further, do you think?
You asked me how did I get started like this, and it is just, you never say no. So, somebody asked me, you don't have any trouble making a 100-foot long stained glass window? Oh, hell no, no, it's easy. And then you leave the meeting and you're like, oh, holy shit, and then, I went to this Tulsa hospital, and the CEO, I could tell, he told me I could do anything I wanted, but I could tell he really wanted, it was for the Heart and Lung Center, and he was a Catholic, and he really wanted the Sacre Coeur. He thought this was a brilliant idea. So I'm like, of course it's a brilliant idea. And I had never even drawn a person's face. So I thought, well, anybody can do this. I mean, so you start jumping and lunging, as we say, and you just get it done. I have started figure drawing just as a hobby. But yeah, I think I've actually done a lot of figurative stuff that was not selected. Or it did get selected, but it fell through, or, the money fell through, or everything imploded, or, so I should have more figurative stuff. But the problem is, at my age, everybody wants a Kemper. Everybody wants what they already know. Like, can you imagine Schreider, doing a figure? Or everybody wants what they already know. So it's hard to do new stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the trouble. You've met with a great deal of success, and you have a very recognizable style. These wonderful kind of brush strokes that look as if they're effortless. They're just swish, swish. I know you work really hard to get that, but it looks effortless. And it's so identifiably you that I'm sure people just want a piece of that. That's what they want. They want their own version of that.
Yeah, that's what, you watch Eric Clapton play the guitar, and you say, all right, it's effortless. So that is my whole thing, is I want it to look simple. My work is very simple on the surface. It looks simple to make, but just ask anybody at Derek's, and they will tell you how easy it is to make. But I want it to look effortless. I want it to be simple, and I want it to be restrained and joyful, full of love. I mean, I love what I do, and I want that quality to be evident in my work, that feeling of love and joy. So that's a very simple thing. It's complicated, of course, really, but on the surface, it's very simple. So like Schreider, or like the medievalist, I use very few colors, 3, 4, 5 colors at most, because do a couple of colors well, and that gives a sort of a simplicity that's really nice. A lot of glass artists, they want And, you know, people like Carl Martin Hartman, you know, who I think is the greatest, probably the greatest stained glass artist of our time. Kalkar is on par, to me, with Saint-Chapelle. What he did there, now he used a lot of colors, but it's so perfectly done. Generally, my work, yes, you're right. It looks simple. It's like swish, swish. I mean, the guy has no talent at all, you know? I mean, how difficult is it, swish, swish? Well, you know, that's...
It's very difficult. It is very difficult. Just anybody who's watching this, try and create something that's just casually done, and you'll do it a million times and you won't get it right. It's like Chinese or Japanese calligraphy, isn't it? It looks effortless, but that's just years of muscle memory, to get it to that point.
And nice stuff. Nice, like I buy good brushes. I use nice paper. You know, I have a brush that costs $2,000. Quality. It's all about everything I do and that's why I think I'm still busy, because there's always going to be a market for the top quality. So that's my market. I still do vinyl printing occasionally when nobody has the money, but there will always be vinyl printing, and there will always be, I hope to God, Lambert's glass.
Well, listen, Guy, this has been absolutely fantastic. I've loved talking with you. I've admired your work for many years, and it's just fantastic to be able to sort of bring your work to a wider audience. A lot of people who are watching these creative experiences maybe are not involved with glass directly, but seeing your work and seeing the quality of your work hopefully will inspire the next generation to keep going, so that we've still got Lambert's glass well into the next century. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been great, Derek. Great to talk to you.